In this video, I will show you how you can attach a zip into your knitwear. And for example, we use a zip in our rocket bomber. So to attach your zip, you'll obviously need a zip, a piece of knitting, which you want to put your zip into, a sharp sewing needle, and some strong sewing thread. Let's get started. So in this video, I'm not going to show you how to sew in your complete zip. I'm just going to show you on a small swatch, but you get the idea just from this small area, as you're just repeating the same technique over and over again as you will do when you're putting in your full zip. So first, what you need to do is thread your sharp sewing needle with some thread. I'm using a contrasting thread to make it clearer to you, but you should try and use a thread which is similar in colour either to the zip or to the piece of knitting that you're sewing down, and so that would keep it looking nice and neat and make it harder to spot the sewing thread. So to begin, you need to take your piece of knitting, and what we're going to do is start sewing the knitting onto the zip 3 stitches in from the edge. So if you just count 3 stitches in, that means I'm going to be sewing up here, which if you're sewing in the rocket bomber will be a line of purl stitches or purl bumps. So line up your zip so that the 3rd row from the edge is sort of touching the zip tape or the teeth of the zip. And take your sewing needle and bring it through to the front of your work, like so. And now you're going to want to take your piece of knitting and making sure that the bottom part of the knitting is level with the bottom part of the zip, because you'll notice there's a plastic area on the zip which you can't sew into. So you need to kind of start a few rows up, so make sure they're lined up. And now you're going to take your sewing needle and take it underneath the purl bump, which is the 3rd stitch from the edge of your knitting, and bring it through like so. And you'll want to just tie a knot so that your sewing thread is going to be secured. Like so. So now you're going to take your sewing thread back to the reverse side of the zip, a couple of millimeters above where you made your initial stitch, and then pull it tight. So that'll mean now that your third stitch in from the edge will be now next to the row of teeth on your zip. So now take your sewing needle back to the front of your zipper tape, a couple of millimeters above and level with where the next purl bump is. Bring it through, and then take your sewing needle underneath the next stitch. So it's kind of like a sewing stitch should take in a knitted stitch each time it comes through to the front. And then you're going to take that back through to the back. And make sure your stitches are forming like a nice neat line. So bring it through to the front again, and then take it under the next purl bump, always remembering that you're working with the 3rd stitch from the edge. And then take your needle back to the reverse side of the zip tape. So this is going to give you a really nice, neat, straight edge. Bring it to the front again, underneath that next purl bump. Back down. So you're just going to keep on repeating those steps until you've sewn in the rib section. But obviously, for the bomber in particular, the whole section isn't rib, so I'll show you what you do when you get to your stocking stitch section. So I've now attached the final pole bump in the rib section. And it's a good idea not to make your sewing thread too long, because otherwise you can get into a tangle, a little bit like I've done. So you've now attached the rib section, and you can see that that's a really nice, neat, straight line, and roughly a straight line on the back as well. It's good to keep that nice and straight. So now what you're going to do is start attaching the stocking stitch section. So bring your sewing needle to the front, a few millimeters above where you've just been, always making sure you're working a similar distance away from the zip teeth. And now you don't have a purl bump anymore, so you're going to find the bar that sits within the third stitch from the edge and go underneath it. So pull your needle through. And then take it back to the reverse side of the zip. And bring it to the front again, roughly where, so it's level with the next row, and take it underneath that bar inside your knitted stitch. And then take it back down again to the wrong side. So you're just going to keep on repeating these steps until your knitted piece is fully attached to the zip. And I think with this it's always good to make sure your stitches are nice and tight so that the knitted piece is going to sit really snugly against that zip and it's not going to come away. And always making sure that you're going in roughly the same distance each time away from the zip teeth so that you get a nice straight line. So there you have it. That's how to put a zip into knitting.